I smiled and thanked her for the coffee as my entire body went numb. 5 years of my life, $5.6 million in new business. And they were taking it all away with a rehearsed speech about leadership experience that felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "We truly value your contributions, Mia," Sarah said, her voice dripping with that corporate sympathy that costs nothing. "This isn't a reflection of your performance. Greg just has the leadership background we need for the next phase." Greg. The same Greg who'd been with the company for 8 months. The same Greg who I'd trained on our client management systems. The same Greg who'd asked me last week how to export a basic analytics report. I nodded politely, maintaining eye contact while mentally calculating exactly how many emails I needed to delete before Monday morning. "Of course," I said. "I understand completely." I didn't cry until I was alone in the third-floor bathroom stall, where the hand dryer was always broken and nobody could hear me. "Hi, I'm Mia Walker, 34, and that coffee meeting happened exactly 7 months ago. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. This story isn't pretty, but I promise you'll want to hear how it ends." I joined Prestige Tech as their 5th employee, back when the office was basically a storage room with dreams. I was 29, fresh out of a toxic work environment at a bigger firm, and hungry to prove myself. Ryan, the founder, had this vision of building the most innovative digital marketing agency in the Midwest. He promised me equity, growth, and most importantly, respect. For 3 years, that's exactly what I got. I built our client acquisition strategy from nothing, created our onboarding systems, designed the pitch decks that won us our first $1 million clients. My team grew from just me to 14 people spanning 3 departments. Then Prestige Tech got its first round of serious funding. Suddenly, we had a board. We had investors. We had a sleek downtown office with glass walls and those stupid motivational posters. And we had Sarah Chen, our new director of client services, hired directly by the board to professionalize our approach. I still remember her first day. Designer pantsuit, perfect blowout, Stanford MBA. She shook my hand and said, "I've heard so much about the foundation you've built here. I can't wait to take it to the next level." The subtext was clear. Your work was cute. Now watch how a real professional does it. Within 2 months, Sarah had restructured my entire department. She introduced new metrics, new software, new reporting protocols. Nothing I'd built was good enough. Every success I'd achieved was reframed as a solid starting point. But I adapted. I stayed late. I learned her systems. I smiled through her constructive feedback sessions where she'd tell me my communication style was a bit too casual, or my reports lacked executive polish. What Sarah didn't know was that I still had relationships with our clients that went beyond fancy presentations. I'd helped these companies when they were struggling startups themselves. I knew their kids' names. I remembered their anniversaries. I sent handwritten notes when they hit milestones. That's how I landed the venture group portfolio. 8 tech startups with combined funding of over $80 million. They wanted a marketing partner who understood the startup journey. Someone who'd been there from ground zero. That someone was me. The venture group contract was worth $5.6 million over 3 years. When I closed it, Ryan, our founder, took the entire company out for champagne. Sarah gave a toast calling it a team effort, despite not attending a single meeting. 3 weeks later, she invited me for that coffee. There's something uniquely painful about being demoted. It's not just losing position or power, it's the public admission that someone thinks you're not good enough. It's watching colleagues who once sought your advice suddenly avoid eye contact in the hallway. That first Monday reporting to Greg was excruciating. He scheduled a 2-hour transition meeting where he essentially asked me to teach him how to do my job. He took notes in a leather-bound notebook Sarah had given him, nodding seriously like he was absorbing state secrets. "Mia, your institutional knowledge is just invaluable," he said, leaning forward. "Sarah thinks with your support, we can really systematize what you've built." systematize. As if my work had been some disorganized, emotional woman's approach that needed a man's rational hand to structure it properly. I smiled. Happy to help any way I can, Greg. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling fan making slow circles above my bed, thinking about the last 5 years, about how Ryan hadn't even called me after the demotion, about how easily I'd been replaced, about how my salary was now paying for both Greg's position and my reduced role. At 3:17 a.m., I opened my laptop and bought the domain miawalkerconsulting.com. I'd like to say I had some grand master plan that night, but honestly, I was just angry. I was hurt. I was tired of corporate platitudes masking simple truths. I was too female, too young, too informal, too much of an original employee to fit the polished image Sarah wanted for her department. Over the next 2 weeks, I did exactly what was expected of me. I showed Greg every system I'd built. I introduced him to every client contact. I forwarded him every important email thread. I was the model of professional cooperation. After hours, though, I was building something else. I started with a basic website. Nothing fancy, just a clean, professional site outlining consulting services for growth-stage tech companies. I used my personal savings to incorporate. I set up business banking accounts. I created proposal templates and contract frameworks. I didn't approach a single client. I wasn't stupid. I'd signed non-solicitation agreements. Breaking those would give Prestige Tech legal grounds to crush me before I even started. But here's what Sarah never understood about client relationships. When you genuinely care about people's success, they notice when you're suddenly demoted. They ask questions. They reach out. They wonder what happened to the person who always had their back. It started with a text from Jason, the CEO of ClearPath, one of the venture group startups. Hey Mia, meeting with Greg tomorrow. What's with the title change? Everything okay? I responded carefully. All good. Company's growing. Roles evolving. Greg's great. You'll like him. 2 days later, Jason called me directly. So that was weird, he said. Greg spent 30 minutes showing me analytics dashboards I don't care about and couldn't tell me anything about our product roadmap integration. I stayed silent, letting him continue. He also referred to our target demographic as techie millennials, which makes me think he hasn't read a single page of our strategy document. What's really going on? This was the moment, the fork in the road. I could defend Greg, defend Prestige Tech, be the good soldier, or I could tell the truth. I chose a third option. Jason, I value our professional relationship too much to put you in an awkward position. The company's made some changes, and I'm navigating those changes. That's all I can really say right now. The silence on the other end told me everything. Are you staying? He finally asked. I'm evaluating my options, I said. Another pause. If you weren't at Prestige Tech, hypothetically, would you still be in the industry? My heart rate doubled. Hypothetically, yes. I love this work. Good to know, he said. Let's grab coffee next week. Just catching up between friends. Nothing official. That coffee with Jason changed everything. He didn't offer me business directly. That would have violated his contract with Prestige Tech. But he mentioned 3 other startups, not in the venture group portfolio, who were struggling to find the right marketing partner. They're too small for most agencies, he said carefully. But someone with the right experience could probably help them establish their foundation before they scale. I nodded, understanding perfectly. Within a month, I had 3 small clients working with Mia Walker, consulting on nights and weekends. I kept my roles strictly separated. During the day, I was demoted Mia, diligently supporting Greg, attending meetings where my input was no longer solicited, watching Sarah take credit for strategies I'd developed years earlier. After hours, I was building something that was truly mine. I lived like this for 3 months. The strain was enormous. I was sleeping 4 hours a night. My apartment became a disaster zone of coffee cups and takeout containers. I lost 12 pounds. My mom started calling daily because she was worried about me. But my little consulting firm was growing. Word was spreading among early-stage startups that I could deliver agency-quality work with personalized attention at a fraction of the cost. By month 4, I'd hired my first part-time contractor to help with design work. At Prestige Tech, things were deteriorating. Greg was clearly overwhelmed, but too proud to admit it. 3 of the venture group clients had escalated concerns about campaign performance. My old team was demoralized and confused by the new management structure. 2 had already quit. Sarah's solution was more processes, more meetings, more micromanagement. She started daily 8 a.m. check-ins that accomplished nothing except making everyone arrive earlier. She implemented a new project management system that doubled everyone's administrative work. Then came the Q2 client satisfaction surveys. The numbers were disastrous. Overall satisfaction down 42%, responsiveness down 38%, strategic value down 56%. Sarah called an emergency department meeting. 60 minutes of her explaining how we needed to rebuild client trust and recommit to excellence. Not once did she acknowledge that the decline perfectly coincided with her reorganization. The breaking point came when she said, "We need to get back to the level of service Mia's team used to provide," while looking directly at me. In that moment, something inside me snapped. 5 years of work, a department I'd built from nothing, clients I'd nurtured from startup to success. All of it dismissed, dismantled, and now held up as some nostalgic standard we needed to return to, by the very person who had torn it down. I excused myself from the meeting, went to the bathroom, and threw up. That weekend, I did something I'd been avoiding. I reached out to Ryan, the founder, and asked to meet for coffee, not at the office. To my surprise, he agreed. We met at a small cafe far from Prestige Tech. Ryan looked tired. The company that had once been his baby had grown beyond his control. Investors, board members, executive hires. He was now just one voice among many. "I miss the old days," he said after we'd exchanged pleasantries, when it was just the original team figuring things out together. I took a deep breath. "Ryan, I need to tell you something, and I'd rather you hear it from me directly." His expression tightened. He knew what was coming. "I'm leaving Prestige Tech. I've started my own consulting practice. It's already growing, and I need to focus on it full-time." He nodded slowly. "The demotion." "Among other things," I said. "But yes, I fought against it, Mia, the board and Sarah. They wanted someone with more traditional corporate experience heading client services. I was outvoted." Part of me appreciated his honesty. Another part was furious that he'd let it happen without warning me. "When are you telling Sarah?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning. I'll give standard notice." Ryan looked down at his coffee. "She's going to see it as betrayal, especially with the client issues we're having." I met his eyes directly. I've never approached a single Prestige Tech client. I've honored every line of my contract. What Sarah sees it as isn't my concern anymore. He gave me a sad smile. "You were always one of the best decisions I ever made. For what it's worth, I'm sorry how things turned out." As we parted, he hesitated, then asked, "Your new business, is it working?" I thought about my growing client list, my new contractors, the freedom of building something true to my vision. "Yes," I said simply. "It's working very well." I had no idea just how well it would work, or how completely Sarah's own actions would feed into what happened next. Because the following morning, when I walked into her office to resign, she did the one thing I never expected. She showed me exactly how afraid she'd been of me all along. Sarah's face did something strange when I handed her my resignation letter. For just a moment, before she could compose herself, I saw raw panic flash across her features. Not disappointment. Not professional concern. Pure, unfiltered fear. She recovered quickly, smoothing her expression into that practiced corporate neutral. "This is unexpected," she said, not meeting my eyes as she scanned my letter. "Can I ask what prompted this decision?" The question itself was almost funny, as if my demotion, her constant undermining, and the systematic dismantling of everything I'd built might have nothing to do with my departure. "I've decided to pursue other opportunities that better align with my career goals," I said, using the exact language from the script HR provides managers for letting employees go. She caught the reference immediately. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I see. And these opportunities? They're with another agency?" There it was, the real question. Not concern for me, but concern for where I might be taking my skills. "I've started my own consulting practice," I said simply. She set my letter down with deliberate care. "Your contract includes quite comprehensive non-compete and non-solicitation clauses." "I'm aware. I haven't approached any prestige tech clients or employees." She leaned forward. "Mia, surely you understand how this looks. You were entrusted with our most valuable client relationships, and now you're opening a competing business?" I kept my voice level. I was entrusted with those relationships until I wasn't. The company made its decision about my value 3 months ago. I've made mine now. For a moment, I thought she might fire me on the spot. Instead, she picked up her phone. "I need to discuss this with legal. In the meantime, I think it's best if you clear out your desk today. We'll pay your notice period, but having you in the office would be disruptive." Within an hour, I was escorted out by HR, carrying a small box of personal items. My company laptop had been remotely wiped while I was in Sarah's office. My email access was already cut. 5 years reduced to a cactus, a coffee mug, and a framed photo of my team from last year's holiday party. 3 security measures stood out to me. First, HR had someone monitor me as I packed up, as if I might steal office supplies or company documents. Second, my keycard was deactivated before I even reached the elevator. Third, and most tellingly, Sarah sent an immediate company-wide email announcing my departure, while I was still in the building, stating she would personally be overseeing all client relationships during this transition. These weren't the actions of a company concerned about an underperforming employee leaving. These were the panicked reactions of someone who saw me as a threat. I should have felt insulted. Instead, I felt validated. They were afraid of what I might do because they knew exactly what I was capable of. What happened next shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. By that evening, my phone was lighting up with messages, not just from my team members, but from clients. Word had spread fast. Marissa from Techo Solutions. Just heard the news. WTF happened. Derek from Blueframe. Sarah just called me personally to reassure me about your departure. Weird energy. Call me? Jason from ClearPath, simply, it's time for that hypothetical conversation. Within a week, I was buried in coffee meetings and casual conversations with people carefully avoiding direct business discussions while clearly exploring possibilities. No one was breaking contracts. No one was making explicit offers. But everyone was asking questions about my new venture. 2 weeks after my departure, Sarah made her first major mistake. She sent an email to all prestige tech clients announcing a strategic restructuring of client services to better serve your evolving needs. The email introduced Greg as the new director of client success and included a revised fee structure that increased retainer costs by 18% to reflect our enhanced service model. Several clients forwarded me that email with variations of the same question. What enhanced service justified an 18% increase when the person who understood their business was gone? I didn't respond to these questions directly. I didn't have to. 3 days later, Blueframe announced they were reevaluating their marketing partnerships and would not be renewing their prestige tech contract when it expired in 60 days. A week after that, Techo Solutions did the same. I didn't solicit either company. I didn't have to. Sarah's combination of dismissing me, raising prices, and failing to deliver quality work was doing my marketing for me. Meanwhile, Mia Walker Consulting was growing faster than I could handle alone. I hired 2 former colleagues who had quit Prestige Tech after my demotion. I leased a small office space. I started turning down potential clients because we were at capacity. Then came the cease and desist letter. Prestige Tech's lawyers claimed I was actively targeting and soliciting their clients in violation of my employment agreement. They demanded I cease all communication with any Prestige Tech clients, past or present, and provide a full list of my current clients to verify compliance. I forwarded the letter to my own lawyer, a college friend who specialized in employment law, with a simple question: "Do I need to worry about this?" Her response came within hours. "Absolutely not. They're phishing and trying to intimidate you. You haven't violated any agreements. Plus, non-competes this broad are barely enforceable in our state. This is corporate bullying, nothing more." She drafted a response that was professionally devastating in its simplicity. It clarified that I had not approached any Prestige Tech clients, included quotes from Sarah's own emails announcing my departure and the price increases, and pointed out that clients making independent decisions after these events did not constitute solicitation. The final paragraph was my favorite. Ms. Walker has meticulously documented all client interactions both during and after her employment at Prestige Tech. Should this matter proceed to litigation, discovery would necessarily include all internal Prestige Tech communications regarding Ms. Walker's demotion, client complaints following the restructuring, and any discussion of client retention issues. We are fully prepared for this process if you wish to pursue it. We never heard from their lawyers again. By month 3 of my new business, I had a team of 6 and a client waitlist. We'd moved to a larger office. I was making almost double my Prestige Tech salary, working fewer hours, and feeling a kind of professional satisfaction I'd forgotten was possible. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. Ryan, Prestige Tech's founder, asked to meet for dinner. Not coffee this time. A proper sit-down meal at an expensive restaurant where no one from the industry would likely see us. He looked even more tired than before. The startup energy that had once made him so compelling was completely gone, replaced by the weary expression of someone carrying too many burdens. "The board called an emergency meeting yesterday," he said after we'd ordered. "Our Q3 projections are concerning." I waited, saying nothing. We've lost 7 clients in the past 2 months. 3 more have reduced their retainers. The venture group is reviewing their contract terms. I took a sip of water. "I'm sorry to hear that. Growing pains can be difficult." He gave me a look that acknowledged my deliberate understatement. "Sarah's blaming the losses on your departure. Says you poisoned client relationships on your way out." "That's categorically false," I said calmly. "I've never spoken negatively about Prestige Tech to anyone. The company's reputation is being determined by its own actions, not mine." Ryan pushed his food around his plate. "The board doesn't know what to believe. They're talking about bringing in a crisis management consultant." I nearly laughed at the irony. "Sounds expensive." "Mia," he said, finally meeting my eyes directly, "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I nodded cautiously. "Are you deliberately trying to destroy what we built?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, some small part of me still cared about what Prestige Tech had once been, about Ryan's original vision and the company we'd built together in those early years. "No," I said softly. "I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm building something new. Something that reflects the values you and I used to share, before the investors and the board, and Sarah." He flinched slightly at the direct hit. "The clients who've left," I continued, "they didn't leave because I poached them. They left because what they valued about Prestige Tech walked out the door with me, and Sarah made no effort to preserve it. Instead, she raised their prices and assigned them to people who didn't understand their needs." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "The board is considering letting Sarah go." I raised an eyebrow. "Seems a bit late for that." "Maybe," he admitted. But we need to stop the bleeding. I've been authorized to explore options. And there it was. The real reason for this dinner. What kind of options? I asked, though I already knew. A partnership, bringing Mia Walker Consulting under the Prestige Tech umbrella. You'd have complete autonomy over your team and clients. Full creative control. The compensation would be significant. I studied his face. This man who had once believed in me and then stood by while others pushed me aside. And my title? I asked. He had the decency to look embarrassed. Executive Director of Strategic Client Services. Reporting directly to me, not the board. I sat back in my chair, letting the offer settle between us. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at this vindication. 3 months ago, I might have considered it a victory. Now, it just felt hollow. Ryan, I said gently, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think you understand what's happening here. I'm not looking to be rescued or reinstated. I'm not waiting for Prestige Tech to recognize my value. I've already recognized it myself. His expression fell. You're turning it down? I am. The board won't be happy. I smiled slightly. I stopped caring about your board's happiness the day they decided Greg was more qualified to lead my department than I was. Ryan pushed his barely touched plate away. What if I told you Sarah's already been informed her position is being eliminated, that this partnership was her replacement strategy? For just a moment, I felt a flicker of satisfaction at the thought of Sarah facing the same humiliation she'd inflicted on me. But it passed quickly, replaced by something calmer and more certain. Then I'd say the company is still making decisions based on fear rather than vision. You're not offering me a partnership because you value what I've built. You're offering it because you're afraid of competing with me. He didn't deny it. As we waited for the check, Ryan tried one last angle. Think about the clients, Mia. The ones still at Prestige Tech. They're suffering from this instability. It was a cheap shot, appealing to my well-known concern for client welfare. But it also revealed just how completely he misunderstood what had happened. Those clients have my personal cell number, Ryan. Any one of them could have called me at any time if they were truly struggling. The fact that they haven't means one of two things. Either they're not actually suffering, or they don't believe I'm the solution to their problems anymore. I reached for the check when it arrived. This one's on me. Consider it a thank you for giving me the push I needed to find my real value. 2 days later, Prestige Tech announced Sarah's departure to pursue other opportunities. They promoted Greg to acting director and brought in a consultant to stabilize client relationships. It was too little, too late. Within weeks, the venture group officially terminated their contract, citing inconsistent delivery and strategic drift. 5 more clients followed. Prestige Tech's stock dropped 22%. I didn't celebrate these failures. There were still good people at that company, people who had been my friends and colleagues. But I also didn't lose sleep over them. Business is business, as Sarah had so clearly demonstrated to me. Meanwhile, my firm crossed the $1 million revenue mark in its 6th month. I hired my 10th employee, a brilliant strategist who had previously been Sarah's right hand at her former company. We moved into a full-floor office with windows overlooking the river. The final piece fell into place 3 weeks ago. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Is this Mia Walker? A woman's voice asked. Speaking. My name is Teresa Lynn. I'm an executive recruiter working with the venture group portfolio companies. My heart skipped a beat. The venture group. The 5.6 million clients that had triggered my demotion. Jason Kim at ClearPath suggested I call you. The venture group is establishing an in-house marketing collaborative to serve all 8 portfolio companies. They're looking for someone to build and lead it. I closed my eyes, absorbing the full circle moment. The position comes with equity in each portfolio company and a seat on their joint advisory board. She continued. They're particularly interested in your experience building systems from the ground up. There was a poetry to it I couldn't ignore. The very clients Sarah had used to justify my demotion were now offering me exactly what Prestige Tech had taken away: leadership, recognition, and a seat at the table. "I'm not looking to return to employment," I said carefully. "I have my own firm now." "They're aware," Teresa replied. "That's actually part of what interested them. They're proposing an acquisition of Mia Walker Consulting, not a traditional hire. Your firm would become the foundation of their collaborative, with you at the helm. You'd retain your team and your brand identity." The offer they eventually made was beyond anything I could have imagined a year earlier. Full acquisition of my company at a valuation that would make me financially independent for life. Leadership of a marketing collaborative with resources I could only dream of, and complete creative control over the strategic direction. I signed the papers yesterday. This morning, I received a LinkedIn connection request from Sarah. Her profile shows she's still seeking new opportunities. I haven't accepted it yet. I'm not sure I will. People ask me all the time if I feel vindicated by how everything turned out. If watching prestige tech struggle while my star rises feels like the perfect revenge. The truth is more complicated than that. I didn't set out to destroy anything or anyone. I simply refused to accept the story others tried to write for me. Sarah saw me as a threat because in her world, women like us can only succeed by taking each other down. She couldn't imagine building something that lifted others up alongside her. So she tried to diminish me to elevate herself, not realizing that real leadership isn't about position or title. It's about vision and values. The real revenge wasn't watching her fail. It wasn't even building something more successful than what she took from me. The real revenge was discovering that I never needed prestige tech's validation in the first place. That the qualities Sarah saw as weaknesses, my personal connections with clients, my non-traditional leadership style, my history with the company, were actually my greatest strengths. I don't know what's next for prestige tech. Ryan still calls occasionally, though I suspect he'll stop now that the acquisition is public. Greg recently updated his LinkedIn profile to include crisis management as a skill, which tells me everything about how his leadership role is going. As for me, I move into my new offices next week. The venture group has given me a budget to hire 20 more people over the next 6 months. We're already fielding partnership requests from companies that wouldn't even take my calls a year ago. Sometimes I think about that coffee meeting where Sarah demoted me. How she sat there so certain of her power, so confident in her judgment of my capabilities. How she never once considered that in trying to contain me, she would instead set me free. If she's watching this, and something tells me she is, I want her to know I'm genuinely grateful. Not for the humiliation or the disrespect, but for the clarity her actions brought me. Without that demotion, I might still be there, building someone else's dream instead of my own. So here's to you, Sarah, wherever you are. Thanks for the coffee, the wake-up call, and the unintentional launch of the best chapter of my career. Sometimes getting demoted is the promotion you never knew you needed.